Hello students, we have to move for the second lesson in the history, that is the extension of British rule in India. So I think in the first lesson you already learnt about that British established the many trading centers in India. They are Bombay, Calcutta and Madras. Those three are very important and they want to extend their ruling for the other places also, because I think you know about that India is a vast country and it is a big country. They want to extend, they want to have an intention to rule over the whole country. That's why they started to extend their ruling in India. To extend their ruling, actually they have implemented the many cunning policies in India. Many cunning, okay, so cunning in the sense they are that shows what if they are if anybody is using is very cunning, they were called as what, very cheaters. Okay, they has to get it, at least by cheating also they has to get it by hook or crook. They want to get that what places, or they want to get that what they required, that everything, that is called as cunning actually. Okay, they have implemented the many cunning policies. Which are those cunning policies they have implemented British in India? They are, the first one is subsidiary alliance. Which is the first one? That is the subsidiary alliance. Keep in mind. Okay, the first cunning policy implemented by the British in India, subsidiary alliance. The second one is doctrine of lapse. Second one is doctrine of lapse, very important, these are all. And the third one is Diwani right. Third one is Diwani right. Fourth one is the fourth cunning policy, that is the dual government. Dual government. About the dual government and the Diwani right, you already learned in the first lesson, right? Okay, the fifth lesson, that is the divide and rule policy. Divide and rule policy. And the sixth one, that is war and negotiation method. War and negotiation method. So these were the methods used by the British in India actually to extend their ruling. To extend their ruling. Okay. So let us know one by one in this actually. So what is mean by subsidiary alliance? Subsidiary alliance means actually if any one king, if he lost in the war, or if he lose the war, if he defeated in the war, actually that whole kingdom, whole administration kingdom has, that administration, okay, has to go for the British king, and British allow the whole their army actually, they want to, okay, who is that king actually who is losing in the war, that king want to look after the whole army actually. That is called subsidiary alliance. Keep in mind. So what is mean by subsidiary alliance? Actually the the Indian king had to allow the British army to stay in the kingdom, okay, to stay in his kingdom, and he has to look good after the whole expense of the British army. So that is called subsidiary alliance. That is a great advantage for the British actually, because they didn't want to bear the whole army expense. That army expense, British army expense, particularly it is British army expense. Keep in mind, not a Indian king army expense. Clear? So that British army expense completely bared by whom? Bared by the Indian king actually, who defeat in the war. That is called as the subsidiary alliance. Keep in mind what is mean by subsidiary alliance. The king who lost in the war, or who defeated in the war, he has to allow the British army to stay in his kingdom. So he want to allow the British army to stay in his kingdom and look after the whole expense of the army. That is called as the subsidiary alliance. And we have to move for the second one. What is doctrine of lapse? Very important terms. These are all you have to get to know properly. So what is mean by doctrine of lapse? Doctrine of lapse means if any Indian king died without the son, without their heredity or without the son, then the whole kingdom, if he had a daughter also, that whole kingdom not transferred to the daughter actually. So that whole kingdom, because I think you know about that in the ruling in India actually, hierarchy in the sense that directly it has from the father, it has transferred to the son, from the son it has transferred to his son, right? Is it if any Indian king, if he is not having any son after he died, after his death, the whole kingdom has goes to the British. Okay, so through this policy, through this doctrine of lapse policy only, British has captured the many regions in India, which are all those that is the Jhansi, Nagapur, Sitara, like that. Jhansi, I think you know about that, ruled by the Queen Lakshmi Bai, Sitara, Nagapur, Sambhalpur, etc. Nagapur, Sambhalpur, etc. So these many more are there. These are the few examples. Okay, so they are occupied by the British, actually captured by the British without any single war or without any single battle. Okay, so they use this doctrine of lapse. British use the doctrine of lapse as a political weapon. Very important it is. They use the doctrine of lapse as a political weapon. It is one kind of weapon. Is it? Yes, they are captured easily. Okay, the whole kingdom. So that's why doctrine of lapse is referred as the political weapon of the British, because through this policy, British captured the many places in India. Many are there. Even in Karnataka also many are there. Okay, many places in India. So that's why they have reached their target actually. That is the extension of their ruling in India to many places through only one policy, that is called as doctrine of lapse policy. It is a very easiest way for them to capture the many states or the many regions in India. That is doctrine of lapse. Keep in mind. And let us move for the third one, that is the Diwani right. So what is mean by Diwani right? I already told you, the collection of, the right to collect the land tax. British have a right to collect the land tax, that is called as Diwani right. Diwani means your zamindaras. Clear? So British themselves, they has appointed the zamindaras actually, the tax before that actually, before the implementation of the Diwani right actually, that tax and everything has collected by the king actually. But after the implementation of the Diwani right, British appointed the zamindaras to collect the land tax. That zamindaras, they are collected the land tax and hand over to the British. That is called as what? Diwani right. I mean, for a name only, king ruling, but the tax, the collection of a tax has taken by the British. That is called as Diwani right. Here they have appointed the zamindaras to collect the land tax. That is called as Diwani right. Let us move for the next, that is the dual government. Dual, the name itself says actually dual. Dual means two. Dual means what? Two. I mean the government, the place, the Indian government or the Indian regions ruled by the two peoples or the two members. Who are those two members? One is called the king. Who are the kings by the time? That king. And one more is British. One more is British. Keep in mind. Okay. So like that, the government has ruled by the two people, the king and the British. That is called as the dual government. Dual, the name itself it represents, it is the meaning of the dual means two here. Okay, both they are. What is the work of them actually? The king as he want to look out after the administration, but the other thing, implementation of activities or implementation of acts, regulation, collecting a land tax, what are all the other things are there, that everything is carried by the British. That is called as the dual government. Okay, so that is called as dual government. I mean, for a name here also, for a name only is a king, but the whole administration of the government is controlled by the British. Okay, they not only collected the land tax here, they are controlling the whole administration of the kingdom. So that is called as dual government. I think you know about that in the last class actually, or in the last lesson. Dual government was implemented by the Robert Clive first in Bengal. Keep in mind. Implemented by whom? Implemented by the Robert Clive, British Governor General Robert Clive. And let us move for the next one, that is the divide and rule policy. This thing also I already discussed it with you yesterday. Is it that is the famous policy of the British actually, it is divide and rule. Okay, if any brothers kings are there, they has to, okay, the British used this policy to occupy their nation or to occupy their region. That is called what? Divide and rule actually. That is the divide and rule. Okay, they are showing some greediness for the brothers, among the brothers actually. So they has created the quarreling among the brothers kings actually. Then they with the help they has started to help for the one king actually and declared the war. When the one king declared a war against the another king actually, British helped for the one team. Obviously, if they are helped for the one team actually, obviously the British who helped for the which team actually that has won actually, the next team will be lost the war. Okay, so like that again they didn't leave. If they won the war, they didn't leave actually. I think you learnt about that Mir Jafar, Mir Qasim and everything. Is it so British first they have helped the Mir Jafar. When they found he was inefficient actually, they stopped helping to the Mir Jafar. Then they started to help for the Mir Qasim. They are also brothers. Last lesson only I have explained about this, right? Is it so then the Mir Qasim became the strong. Again when Mir Qasim found they are inefficient, so they dethroned the Mir Qasim. Again they made the Mir Jafar. That is the divide and rule policy. Like that they have occupied the whole India. Even we are also in the sense the Indian kings are also very foolish. They can't able to believe the brothers and the sisters. They can believe the others like the British, okay, and lose the whole country. Okay, so that is the divide and rule policy. And the next one, that is the sixth one, that is the last one, it is war and negotiation method. War and negotiation method means here the British has given two options for the Indian kings. British are very brilliant actually. So that's why they ruled us nearly 347 years. 347 years. War and negotiation methods. They have given two options for the Indian kings actually. Two choices for the Indian king. One is called war and another one is called negotiation. Okay. That means British declared a war against the which kingdom or against the which king. They has to come for the war or they has to neglect the war and surrender. Negotiation means neglect. Okay, so and has to neglect the war and surrendered his whole kingdom for the British without the war. Okay, they want to attend the war or they can neglect. If they are neglecting, they want to surrender the whole kingdom for the British. That is the negotiation. If they want select, if they has chosen the war, actually they want to fight in the war actually, and who will win, that kingdom belongs to the that person, may it is belongs to the British or the king. That is called as the war and negotiation methods. So these are the cunning policies, main 6 cunning policies implemented by the British. Clear? So in that we have to know about the subsidiary alliance conditions now. What are the conditions of the subsidiary alliance? It is having a more conditions. So I already told you the Indian king had to keep the British army and looked after it. That is the first condition. Very important question it is, and most repeated questions. What are the conditions of subsidiary alliance? I told you already, the Indian kings had to keep the British army and looked after the whole army by expensing his by bearing his expense. Okay, and the next one is the king had no right to appoint the soldier. The king had no right to appoint the soldier. Okay, just you want to look after the army, or you want to bear the expense of the army. He didn't have any rights to appoint the soldiers in the army without the permission of the British, and the king could not have any right to come to any agreement without the permission of the British. Which agreement here? Agreement in the sense, if the king want to declare a war against any other rival group actually without the permission of the British, he can't able to use the British army. If he was bearing the expense of the army also, but he didn't have any rights, okay, to use the British army in the war. So that is he didn't have any agreement. He could not enter to any agreement without the permission of the British. And in return, these are the condition. In returns of all these services, the British offered the protection of the state. Okay, so this is one of the mercy showed by the British actually. In return, okay, the king is helping more. So in return for that, the British gave a protection for the state. These are the conditions of the subsidiary alliance. Keep in mind that. Next is about the very important war in this lesson actually, that is the Anglo-Maratha War. Very important, Anglo-Maratha War. Keep in mind. Very important wars actually. There are the 3 Anglo-Maratha wars took place actually. So which are those 3 Anglo-Maratha war? That is the first Anglo-Maratha war, and the second Anglo-Maratha war, and the next one is third Anglo-Maratha war. Very important war in this lesson actually. There are the 3 important wars took place between the Anglo, the name we can guess here between whom it took place actually. Anglo means British, Maratha means nothing but the Marathas. I think in the last year in the 9th standard you learnt about the Marathas, is it? So there are the 5 families of the Marathas, very important families. So they are, which are those 5 families of the Marathas? The first one is Peshwa. The second one is Sindhya. Just I am recalling you that Sindhya. Third one is Holkar. Peshwa, Sindhya, Holkar, Bhonsle. Fourth one is Bhonsle, and the next one is Gayakwad, or it is also known as Gayakwar. Both are same. Gayakwad and Gayakwar both are same. Clear? So these are the very important Maratha families. You learnt already, is it? In the 9th standard. Which are those? Peshwa, Sindhya, Holkar, Bhonsle and the Gayakwar. Okay, so between them only, after the Maratha kingdom division, actually these families arises after the division of the Maratha kingdom. I think you know about that. So these are the very important Maratha families after the death of Shivaji, is what they have arisen actually. So yes, so between these families only the internal war took place. Now and then they are quarreling each other. Quarreling in the sense, Peshwa declared the war against the Scindia, or Scindia declared the war against the Holkar, or Holkar and the Scindia Peshwa joined each other, declared the war against the Bhonsle and Gayakwar, like that. Okay, like that. I think you know about that. India is famous for the internal war. Even it took place in a home also nowadays. Is it? Yes, that is called as the internal war. So that internal war is the main reason they are encashing, the British encashing that internal war very well by their famous policy, that is the divide and rule policy. Here the British also used their famous policy, that is the divide and rule policy. Yes, we have to go for the first Anglo-Maratha war here. First Anglo-Maratha war. Anglo means, I already told you, that is the war took place between the English and the Maratha family. So here the first Anglo-Maratha war took place between English versus Nana Fadnavis. English versus Nana Fadnavis. Keep in mind, the first Anglo-Maratha war took place between the British, English also known as the British and the Nana Fadnavis. We have to get to know that who was Nana Fadnavis, and keep in mind this first Anglo-Maratha war took place in the year 1775 to 1815. 1775 to 1778. Sorry. This was took place between 3 years actually, between 1775 to 1778, between the English and the Nana Fadnavis. So who was Nana Fadnavis actually? Nana Fadnavis, I already told you, Maratha rulers are called as the Peshwa, right? Maratha rulers are called as the Peshwa. So Nana Fadnavis was the Prime Minister of the Peshwa Narayana Rao. Keep in mind, Narayana Rao was the Peshwa of Maratha Kingdom. So this Nana Fadnavis was the PM. PM in the sense Prime Minister. Prime Minister of the Narayana Rao. Nana Fadnavis was not a Peshwa, actually he was not a king, just he was a Prime Minister. Okay. So again, why Prime Minister has participated here, that is the main reason here. So let us recall the causes. Let us know the causes, reasons for the first Anglo-Maratha war. So he was died unexpectedly or naturally he was died. Who? The Narayana Rao, Peshwa of Maratha Kingdom. Narayana Rao. After the death of Narayana Rao, he has his minor son. His minor son in the sense only his age about 7 to 10 years actually, or 8 to 10. So that is Madhava Rao. Madhava Rao II. Keep in mind, he was the Madhava Rao II. Clear? So Narayana Rao, after the death of Narayana Rao, actually I told you already, so if the father is died, the whole administration want to go for the his son Madhava Rao II. So after the death of Narayana Rao, this Nana Fadnavis tried to ascend the minor Madhava Rao II. But there will be the problem actually, because Narayana Rao has his brother, actually younger brother, that is nothing but Raghova. Who was that? Keep in mind and don't get confusions here. Raghova was the uncle of the Madhava Rao, or the younger brother of the Narayana Rao. Okay. So Raghova thought actually Madhava Rao was a very minor. Yes, he was a very minor, just 7 to 8 year boy. How can he rule the kingdom? That's why he thought the whole administration, Peshwa kingdom, has to capture with the help of British. So that's why, but Nana Fadnavis not supported for that actually. So that's why Raghoba, his uncle Raghoba, took the help of a British and declared the war against the Nana Fadnavis. Okay, when Nana Fadnavis not allow the Raghoba to ascend the throne actually, then the Raghoba approached the English for the help actually. Then he, with the help of English, he declared the war against the Nana Fadnavis. Keep in mind, the reason is that after the death of Narayana Rao, Nana Fadnavis supported the Madhava Rao II to ascend the throne instead of his uncle Raghoba. So that's why Raghoba approached the English and declared the war against the Nana Fadnavis. What were the effects? But unfortunately, if the English helped for the Raghoba also, Nana Fadnavis was very brave and powerful man. So that's why in this war, the Nana Fadnavis won the war, but English lost the war. Keep in mind, okay? English not won the war. English lost the war. Nana Fadnavis won the war. If Nana Fadnavis won the war, obviously the Madhava Rao II named as Peshwa, and this war, the first Anglo-Maratha war, it is not Mysore war, keep in mind. So the first Anglo-Maratha war was ended with the Treaty of Salbhai Treaty. Very important it is. Salbhai is the place, it is in Maharashtra. Very important, the first Anglo-Maratha war was ended with the Treaty of Salbhai Treaty. Okay, so let us know about the second Anglo-Maratha war now. So this also second Anglo-Maratha war took place between the English versus the many families which are the Holkar family. Holkar family, English and the Holkar family. Holkar is also one of the family of Maratha. Keep in mind. The second Anglo-Maratha war took place between the English and the Holkar family in the year 1803 to 1805. It is very important. 1803 to 1805. Chronological events are very important. The second Anglo-Maratha war took place from 1803 to 1805 between English and the Holkar family. So what are the main reasons? Main reason nothing but this thing only, which is that the internal war among the Maratha families. Okay, internal war among the Maratha families. So here particularly the Holkar and the Scindia are in one group and the Peshwa are in one group. Okay, so this has took place actually. Then that is the main reason. Internal war between the Maratha family is the main reasons for this. Let us see the effects or the results. Results in the sense, Scindia of Gwalior and Bajirao II defeated by the Holkar actually. Okay, Bajirao II is very important here. I think you know about him in the 9th standard. Bajirao II, he was also called as the Shivaji. Is it Shivaji II? Okay, he was the last ruler in the Peshwa family. Keep in mind, Bajirao II was the last ruler in the Peshwa family. And who made him as a Peshwa actually? The Sahu, Shivaji's son actually. Sahu, last year you have to recall that last year lessons actually. Shivaji's son, sorry, Sambhaji's son. Shivaji's son was Sambhaji. Sambhaji's son was Sahu. Sahu made him as a Peshwa. Okay, for the help of, so Bajirao II helped for the Sahu to release the Sambhaji and his wife, and his mother actually. That's why Sahu made when Sahu is not having enough strength to rule over the kingdom, by that time Sahu made the Bajirao II as the Peshwa. Okay, he was the last Peshwa in the Maratha family. Keep in mind. Okay, so Bajirao II defeated by the Holkar. Holkar defeated the Bajirao II, and this war ended with the Treaty of Bassein Treaty. Very important. This war was ended with the Treaty of Bassein Treaty, and here the English won the war. Okay, English won the war, and Bajirao lost the war, and Bajirao accepted the famous policy of the British, that is subsidiary alliance. Bajirao accepted the subsidiary alliance. So this is about the reasons of the Second Anglo-Maratha War. Let us recall the reasons again. So Bajirao II defeated by the Holkar family with the help of the English actually. Then this war was ended with the Treaty of Bassein. Bassein is also one of the place in Maharashtra. Okay, and English won the war. Bajirao II, he was defeated. That's why he was accepted the subsidiary alliance. I mean, he promised, he came to the agreement with the British to look after the army of the British. Okay, so this is about the first and the second Anglo-Maratha war. Tomorrow we have to discuss about the third Anglo-Maratha war, and one more major war is there, that is the Anglo-Sikh war. Hope you will understand very best and keep learning. Thank you.